Okay. All right, this is the part where I have to really embarrassingly like do my YouTube intro live, okay? Is everyone ready? Best part, best part. Okay. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the Devstream 152 breakdown. I'm doing this live on stream right now, which is unusual, but we have some other things to stream today, so we have to do it live. We have many notes, many things to talk about. First and foremost, TennoCon 2021, just some notes. It will not be physical. The devs are not even going to be into the office until September probably, so that is very much not going to be happening in person this year. If you were planning on it, that's not happening. Also, as another minor note that happened during the stream, Waypoint Fixing, there is a system that they're doing over time in the background that is hopefully going to fix the Waypoint system problems that have been persisting for quite some time. So that is also of note here. Moving on, we have Spring 2021. So we have two updates planned for this spring, the first of which is the big Railjack update, with which we have a lot to talk about. So Railjack 3.0, the Corpus Railjack content, the command intrinsic, the dev workshop is going to be on March 8th, they said, and then it's going to release on PC first. So with that stuff, let's talk about Railjack 3.0, which we can just skip to 29 minutes or so in here. So Railjack 3.0 has some problems that they've stated need to be solved here, which is that the host Railjack determines too much, introduces the harness to unify, which is the code word. Will probably get a different name whenever it's actually out. It's too different but not different enough. Avionics versus mods, Direct versus Endo. Many intrinsic ranks seen as not worth it. Onboarding is still rough and not intuitive. Railjack interior is overly large and not streamlined for play. Lack of connective content, relics, warframes, and rewards. And generic mission voting and matchmaking issues, repetitive / skirmish only. So this is a really good list of the problems with Railjack, and if they are able to solve them all, that will be extremely positive for the game at large. Things in here that I am worried about based on some other comments that they've made is that many intrinsic ranks seen as not worth it. They're putting necromech stuff into these intrinsics, and we have the information now that one of the intrinsics is going to be the one that allows you to use necromechs in any mission. And that honestly really seems like some core functionality to me, so I don't know how high my hopes are for the intrinsic stuff, all feeling like worthwhile things that you want to grind for, but we'll see. Maybe that'll be like a thing that's attached to like the bottom of command or something, and it will be like, oh, okay, sure. As a rank 1 in command, I guess I could see it, although I would rather command be more focused on making it better for solo players to play Railjack in general. With all this stuff, if they're able to fix it, that'll be great. I mean, rewards being in Railjack in general just needs to be a thing. There's no reason to play Railjack right now outside of getting your intrinsics, so if we have like real relics and other things to farm, that'll be great. Speaking of which, they are going to be unvaulting relics permanently as rewards in some of the new Railjack content. So the new missions that we're going to be getting are going to like have like Ash Prime and all these vaulted relics that we haven't had for a while, and they're just going to be permanently unvaulted and put into Railjack, so they will be much more accessible than they have been recently. Along with that, they are doing a significant cost reduction to what sounded like basically everything, which is building the weapons for your Railjack, getting the Railjack itself built in general, and just basically anything that has to do with building stuff for the Railjack, just making it really, really easy for people to get into it, which is great because the barrier to entry is like hilariously high for no reason on something that seems like they want it to be a very core piece of the game. That doesn't really work whenever you give people like a multi-day wall for them to like work through on a thing that like is the hot new update. That'll be very bad for people in general. The Orphix Venom mission type is going to be added to this, as we actually heard in the past, and that is going to be an arcane farm. So that's a real thing. That's going to be a place where we're actually going to be able to continue to get arcanes from. That is going to be through Railjack. You'll like get onto a Corpus ship and then do Orphix Venom there. That'll be arcanes. Obviously, we don't know like the exact drop rates or anything that's going to be in there, but that seems like a good way to just have that kind of be evergreen, a good way to get arcanes, whether that be like just when Eidolons are down or just a strictly better way in general. because Eidolons are somewhat decrepit and old as it stands at current. And then we have the Battleforge rework, which was mentioned really briefly, and they did not go into specifics, but it sounded like they're removing the need to go into the back of the ship and like pull the thing down and craft the ammo and stuff, and that's still going to be a thing you're able to do, but that your stuff will regenerate over time is what it sounded like they were hinting at, which personally, as someone who does not like to do chores on the Railjack, sounds great. Not having to go back there all the time and just make all the machines go. Having any way to automate that process whenever I'm just sitting on a bajillion resources sounds really, really good. Other stuff. Command Intrinsic, we did not get a whole lot of details on, but we know it's going to be coming with this update. This Railjack 3.0, the update 29.10, this is everything that's going to be in it that we know of. There are going to be new pets with the Queen Pins. There's going to be the Corpus Railjack and the Command Intrinsic, and that's going to be this update. This is the next update that's going to be on PC. As far as I could tell, this update is going to be rolled into the Tempestari Update 30 for people who are on console, and Update 30 is going to be for everybody all at the same time. Everyone's going to get it all at once. This is going to include Sevagoth plus a brand new quest, and it seems like it's going to be like a major cinematic quest from all of the things that they were mildly hinting at, so there's that. There's also going to be the Zephyr Deluxe, which we can take a look at real quick with one more moment. We'll skip to it. Yeah, here we go. We'll just mute this. This is the Zephyr Deluxe. This doesn't have all of its like final touches on it. There's some transparency to the materials that are going to be happening, but this is the deluxe stance and the actual Zephyr skin. Hopefully the buffs that we've heard about coming to Zephyr are relevant in any way, shape, or form, so that it'll matter that Zephyr has a deluxe. But as it stands, I think the deluxe looks kind of cool. Hopefully it'll color really well, because I'm not a huge fan of the base colors, but I think like as per design, whenever you were just walking around and the stance wasn't being all flaily, it actually looked pretty good. So that's cool. And then we saw like just some more of what we've already seen with Sevagoth. We saw some of his animations. He's a JoJo character. He has a stand. That's the over-under on what's going on there. And then the rest of this entire stream was a lot of Q&A. So we are going to take a moment to go through what I feel are like the really big important things that were asked here, and also some funny stuff. Because obviously, my questions here, I submitted some questions on request, and they got answered here. So, of course, I'm going to include that in my video. And I think the answers are pretty compelling, but then we also have some really, really important shit to talk about down here that is also of note. So we'll go over mine first. So we will go to 5028 or so. And these are the questions that I asked.
Updates, we've seen a good handful of new game modes.
Let me restart here.
It's the new copy.
Oh, right. I got questions again.
Here we go.
Oh, God, I think my headphones just died, but we'll see. All right. Okay. So question from Brozime. In recent updates, we've seen a good handful of new game modes, Disruption, Scarlet Spear, Orphic Venom. Do any of these game modes speak to Warframe's future in terms of structure, whether that be rewards or gameplay?
That's a good question. I thought, just to talk about the rewards part, I thought that was a big success, and I would credit Scott with that. That the reward structure for Orphic Venom, the way that worked out, it was a great idea. To kind of have the pairing.
I don't know if I'm being thrown under the bus here or
no. I'm not throwing you under the bus.
Are you saying like putting you could earn it or get lucky?
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, I really like that. I think that's something that I'd like to emulate for in the future as well. So I think that was a good indicator for if you were to look at that and you like that. If you liked it, then you could say that that's one that we're taking away as one that's going to be useful for the future.
Excellent.
Sorry, that was just my 2 cents.
That's okay. I don't know if anyone else has a remark on that.
We do have a kind of confusing.
Yeah, it's a big question. So the reward structure, and then are the gameplay structures also indicative of the future? I wouldn't say that.
Well, there's
obviously
a follow-up.
we're using the mech stuff. Necromechs are going to be more generally usable in our next Railjack update. Is that fair to say, Scott?
Yep. It's mechs have been integrated into the intrinsics.
Oh.
Yeah. So you'll be able to kind of use them anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, so the intrinsics that you didn't think, if a player didn't like rank 5 in tactical or something, maybe mechs have a home there now, something like that.
Something like that.
Follow up on that. Open worlds have seen a lot of advancement in terms of quality since Planes of Eidolon through story and reward structure, but tend to have objectives that boil down to mobile defense in many cases, especially bounties. Is there a want to lean towards more active objectives in the future, or is defense more core to open worlds?
There's a huge desire to evolve that. Steve was, I don't know, he was venting, I guess, about like his desires to expand on open world gameplay. Just like recently, anyway. We know we gotta expand on that, and I think there's some stuff in the works with some current open world explorations.
So I think also with the when we previewed a bit of the Railjack stuff last year, I think a lot of people saw that kind of stuff and went, "Oh,
Data mass.
We're still doing that," you know, and the 2012 data mass is still alive, and so yeah, we are expanding that. We don't think that that's. I don't think that that's like. We don't feel like that's a pinnacle game mode or like some kind of like core underpinning of those structures. We want to go. We want to go much more diverse and more active for sure. But I don't think that's going to be reflected soon, but I think you're going to see.
Oh yeah, well, the new game mode.
New game mode in the Railjack stuff will show you where we need to go. I think we've been internally not doing well balancing the kind of releases that add new game modes. I think Orphic Venom was a good exception to that, but I don't think that we've been doing enough to revitalize that old stuff that kind of have musty smell on some of those game modes, and so that's kind of a big kind of the marching orders of our crew is to dig a little deeper, and maybe even if things are working, if you guys are burned out on them, we got to change it. So
did you pay Brozime to ask that question, Steve?
Absolutely, I got to do my
that was how dare you?
And I'm paying in Bitcoin, and it's just going through the roof, so it's terrible.
How dare you? So we also have a question from Sliverito.
Okay. Those were the questions that I decided to ask. There were a lot of good questions from a lot of the content creators, but it's hilarious every time to ask if I was paid to ask those specific questions. To me personally, I was not. For anyone who's curious. But legitimately, I think that despite the long, awkward pauses, that there were some good answers to the questions that I asked. Where like Sheldon's answer of like going more on the Orphic Venom type stuff in the future, where like you can either randomly get a reward or have kind of like a shop to get it on what is sort of pity with enough points. I think that stuff was really, really good in Orphic Venom, and that stuff I would personally like to see going forward. So it's cool to hear that reward stuff might be a thing that we see in the future. And then in regards to the mobile defense stuff, like acknowledgement that like they know is good enough for me, honestly. I just want more active objectives that are more like Orphic Venom and active game modes where you are like playing the game as opposed to waiting around. So that stuff all seems like those were the answers that like they satisfied what I wanted to hear personally, and it hopefully means that we will get better stuff in both regards to gameplay and rewards going forward. Also, we have another thing to go over, which is going to be the low point of this stream at 40:30, which is primaries and secondaries versus melee weapons. Obviously, it's been a thing for a while here that melees are way better than primaries and secondaries by like a hilarious landfall, and you can see by my notes here, it might not go super great here. So we'll jump into this business here.
Question 1: guns versus melee. Are there any plans?
I knew he was going to ask this.
I knew he was going to ask this.
Are there any plans to bring the damage of primary and secondary weapons up in line with our melee scaling to balance things out, or are you happy with the gulf between weapons?
We are not happy. There's been many YouTube videos that have demonstrated the absurdity that is the melee in the steel path. Going back to your video you made, Reb,
So they're referencing a Quiet Shy video where you just hit E a bunch and you can complete Steel Path missions. I would like to start this off before we continue through this on saying that like starting off with melee is too strong as the question of why, like in answer to the question of why are primaries and secondaries so weak, seems pretty fucking rough. Like right off the bat, as melee has been core for a long time and people really like melee in general. Like obviously you can just tap E a bunch to kill things, but like the combo systems and stuff are there, and they're very fun for a lot of players.
About you can play the whole Steel Path with the smashing E. Mm-hmm. You made an entire video of that.
Yeah, a lot of
Joe,
ad revenue.
Joe, who worked on these systems daily, took that to heart a lot and has been spending a lot of time making changes without necessarily directly nerfing melee, but looking at mods that can be added to the primary and secondary system that will bring those up to the level of melee, but maybe dropping melee in a not necessarily a power, but a functional way as well.
Okay, so I would like to note here that the solution of adding like new, better, higher quality mods to primaries and secondaries does make a lot of sense for bringing those weapons up, and at the same time gives us new rewards that we want to farm. So that is a good thing to go towards, is just higher quality mods for primaries and secondaries. But like there's a part here with what's going to happen to melee that seems very rough.
So a lot of the stances and combos, every hit was a stagger or stun, which is basically free CC all the time. So looking at going through each of the attacks and the stances and potentially removing some of the staggers and stuns that are just built into every hit. He's pitched probably 3 or 4 different, or more than 3 or 4, probably 10 different mods that mod changes plus additional mods that are going to be added to the primary and secondary pool, plus some changes to some of the melee ones. We're also looking at, Jeff will appreciate this, is bringing down the attack rate of melee is one of the things we're also looking at because
so it looks better.
Well, that's what Jeff
I've
hates.
I've been saying that for years, but
it's fine.
Okay. This is a really important thing that we have to talk about with the attack rate of melee. The attack rate of melee can be very fast, and they're going to mention how you can get such and such extremely large amounts of percentage of attack speed on melee weapons. And that's true. You can attack very, very fast with melee weapons. However, the core system of melee is based on attacking quickly with the whole combo systems and applying statuses and like doing all that stuff. Doing that very fast is kind of the thing. So there's a world where changing the attack speed of melee weapons is not something that I particularly dislike, because you can lower how fast things attack and increase their damage, and also increase the amount of combo that gets built by these weapons by reducing the amount of hits necessary to get to those higher combo levels, balancing that thing out. So if you want it to like play more in a slower, higher damage way, that is a perfectly valid thing to do, but like that stuff has to be like balanced across itself. So if the thought is that the attack speed stuff doesn't look good, which in a lot of cases that's fair, then it needs to be balanced in such a way as to incentivize you to not just like have to build attack speed to get any kind of a reasonable attack speed that would be useful, but your base attack speed needs to be at a level you're already comfortable with, which is an incredibly hard balance to strike, and it would require changing a whole lot of systems, so it seems like it would be hard-pressed for that to happen.
Fine.
fine.
Also, as another side note, the staggers that are being talked about at any kind of like a high-level gameplay, that completely ceases to matter. The enemies die when I swing my melee weapon at them. That's the crowd control that is most effective.
2022, Jeff is in charge of balance.
Good luck, Jeff.
Yeah. So I think we totaled it all up, and I think it's somewhere around 230% attack speed you can get now on melee by combining all of the different mods that we've released over the years,
Which you would not do.
and the Prime versions. So kind of looking at those and potentially we have the idea of parented mods that allow you to not double put ones that kind of do the same thing. So taking those and maybe classifying them down so that we can limit how crazy you can actually make it on attack speed side. So there is definitely going to be some nerfs to melee, but we're looking at to do it in a way that just basically brings the danger back to the game versus.
So of note here, putting everything into a family of saying like all of these attack speed mods, you can only equip any given one. Usually that's what happens. Very, very few weapons do I use like Primed Fury and also Berserker. The vast majority of melee weapons use only Berserker if they're going to be doing a shitload of damage. So if we're only using Berserker, then already, and they make it so they're all under the same family, all that actually is going to end up doing is making it so that weapons that are naturally slow don't have the option of stacking Berserker plus Prime Fury in those few cases where you might want to do that in order to get a reasonable enough attack speed for them to build their combo and do the things that they want to do. So that doesn't seem like that would solve a problem just to change the mods or limit them, unless you're going to like nerf the attack speed across the board and then also limit it to 1 per build, which just seems like it would mean that any weapon that is naturally slow is at a massive disadvantage for no reason. And also, if they make those changes to attack speed but don't address, as Flynn is saying in my chat, to credit him for this, we will just use Warframe abilities and arcanes in order to get that attack speed back that we desire, because the weapons need to swing fast enough for us to kill the enemy mans. So there's a whole kit and caboodle of problems with changing the attack speed stuff, because we're going to try and get it to the fast speed that we want. And also, like, a lot of Warframe abilities, like more than you'd imagine, just make the melee go faster anyway.
It removes all of the power fantasy that we want. And then bringing up the guns to follow. He's got some pretty cool ideas to kind of combo the melee with the guns as well. Like on a melee kill, you get a bonus to your primary and stuff like that.
Yes.
That is already an arcane that no one uses. However, I will note that if we go back 5 years or so, we were having this really, really important conversation about how weapon switching could be super fast and weapons could have different purposes. And if they took this opportunity to make it so that if you get a melee kill, you get a huge boost to your primary or secondary or whatever, and make it a rotation between 3 weapons to keep boosting your damage higher and higher, as in like combo between all the weapons that you have equipped, that's a potentially really cool thing to combine with a super fast weapon switch speed. If you were to do all of those things, then we would use all of our weapon slots, because all of our weapons would get more powerful as we use each one and like continue to switch weapons and continue to do different things. That is a possibly incredibly cool thing to do that you could build in as a system. But we'll see.
It's like
Cool.
the whole arsenal can
like
benefit itself.
Yeah, so basically we're hoping that we can kind of shake up some of the meta that has surfaced from the years of mods that we've added to the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely on our mind, and Joe has been working on it, and I'm probably butchering this horribly, and he's gonna message me after this. But
Yeah.
Well, it
Chad's
sounds like there's going to
definitely
be
the combo stuff sounds exciting.
there's going to be
like
2 dev workshops that, on the
Yeah,
radar.
and
It
when-
sounds like.
Yeah.
What's the timeline for this?
he's been working on this right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is all.
It's not Tempestari timeline though, is it?
I
don't
think
think
that,
so, no.
that it's an internal whenever we want to try to do it.
Chad is taking it, everything Scott said, as a giant nerf,
Nice,
so I'm
Jim.
sure Joe is.
But
That's
you
all I
guys are
ever
gonna
do
be
is
on TV
nerfing.
now?
So
Yeah,
here we are.
Joe is very afraid right now.
Yeah, I think let's take away some key things. Are like, so
We'll go
for
through this
example,
real
if
quick.
I were to just as a dev stream host jump right into, hey Jeff, like you brought some cool stuff for like a new melee type.
Oh yeah, then the saw stuff is still happening, as we know. So yeah, that's like some important points from this. The only other thing that they did slightly mention based on one of the questions is that for raids and trials and stuff, they are thinking about the 3rd orb, which yes, they do remember exists. Will be a new raid / trial in the future. So that's a thing going forward into the future. But overall, I think like this dev stream, there's like a lot of like positive stuff happening. Like the stuff that's coming that we know about for these 2 updates seems like it will hopefully be very, very good, and has, you know, a lot of potential. But there is the ever looming nature of this section right here of just like dumpstering all the things that people have invested in and treating it like Korra recently. That seems like that would be a really, really rough experience. It is worth noting that speaking of the big Korra nerfs that we got, alongside those glaive buffs, all of the things that they mentioned changing for melee stuff in regards to attack speed and things doesn't affect how powerful glaives and stuff are right now. So, as a fallback, you might want to get a glaive prime if they trash can a lot of the roster of melee weapons somehow. So, that is going to do it for the Devstream breakdown. Hopefully you all on YouTube enjoyed it. I am going to be playing some Outriders, which I will then be doing a video on in the future. So, yeah, that is what we're going to be switching to. And, yeah, hopefully everybody enjoyed. Goodbye, everyone on YouTube, and we'll continue on stream. Okay, cool.